Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
7:07 O'Connor and Company on a beautiful Monday in your nation's capital. Can't say so much about Los Angeles, though, as we continue to give you the latest out of that fair town. Once again, a man-made disaster this time. Riots with flames fanned by the governor and the mayor. Oh, English is my second language. Coming up in 30 minutes, Newt Gingrich will be here. 8:05, Cully Stimson on the legality or lack thereof of sanctuary cities. And at 8:35, Kurt Schlichter, who has been deployed with the California National Guard multiple times, including the 92 riots of Rodney King. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
And if all that weren't enough, we've also got quite a bit going on with regard to the Supreme Court. Major court decisions coming down in favor of President Trump. You didn't get a lot of that news, of course, over the weekend. Joe diGenova, our legal analyst and former U.S. attorney for D.C., joins us to discuss all of those things. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Let's start with Kilomar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man that Chris Van Hollen went to the mat for, and all the Democrats went to the mat for. He's back in the U.S. now under a grand jury indictment over multiple counts of human trafficking, soliciting child porn, and in the documents, the indictment, it is alleged now by the Justice Department that he actually participated in the murder of a mother of a rival gang member in El Salvador. I'd love for your observation as to how this all played out and the Justice Department's role here in bringing justice to the Maryland man.
Well, I think the administration was trying to find a face-saving way to bring Garcia back to the United States, and they found it. They found that in that fabulous Tennessee traffic stop that went unenforced by the Biden administration, there was the kernel of a series of crimes and a conspiracy against the United States. And once they found out and they got it indicted with the assistance of jailed co-conspirators, they were able to bring him back to the United States for a second try at getting him convicted and eventually deported. Mr. Garcia won in only the smallest sense that he's now back in the United States, but not the way he wanted to be, because in all likelihood, he won't ever be granted bond by a federal judge. He's going to be convicted. He's going to prison, and then he's going to be deported, and he's going to be separated from his family while he's in the prison, which is his choice and their choice. So all in all, I think it's a fairly good result for the government. They handled it the right way. I listened to his lawyer claim that this was all a farce. I just don't think federal grand juries are farces.
Yeah. And meanwhile, as the Trump administration continues to enforce laws that are written with regard to immigration and enforcing our immigration laws, we're seeing, of course, the stare down out in California where the governor and the mayor have taken the sides of the criminals. And now Gavin Newsom wants to sue the Trump administration because they deployed the National Guard to bring order to the chaos there. Is there any precedent here for a governor to sue the federal government or the president to deploy the National Guard?
It's never happened before. The last time a president deployed troops over the objection of a governor was 1965 in the middle of the civil rights crisis in the South. This is going to be an interesting case. By the way, we are now seeing the real Gavin Newsom. I don't know if you've watched him during some of these shots where he's preening about put me in handcuffs. This is not Charlie Kirk's Gavin Newsom. This is the real Gavin Newsom, the insurrectionist, the anarchist, the pretty boy face. He's just amazing. He is a total fraud. He's Bill Clinton squared. And what you see is this reaction. They are going to sue in U.S. District Court, I understand today, to get a federal judge to issue an injunction forcing the president to remove these troops. Now, this is going to be a doozy. If they find the right federal judge, the city, and he orders the president to withdraw these troops, the president will tell him to stick it, because those federal troops are now deployed around the U.S. courthouse in Los Angeles and various federal buildings, including ICE headquarters. So those troops are legally deployed to protect federal property under the act where the president is allowed to deploy them, because this is an area of domestic violence. I don't know if it's an insurrection yet, but it's clearly an area of domestic violence where enforcement of federal law is in jeopardy. So this is going to be a great set-to. It's going to be really fascinating to see which federal judge he draws and whether it's a nut or somebody with a brain, because there is no way the Supreme Court is ever going to support a governor telling the president he can't deploy federal troops to protect federal officials and federal property.
Yeah.
Joe, I'm curious if anything can be done about some of these NGOs that are clearly funding this kind of these riots. I mean, I loved the images of there were people holding Mexican flags, and they were clearly, Mexican descent, and they're wearing a keffiyeh. I don't know when that started. I'm starting to get confused, frankly. But really, it isn't confusing. It's all funded by the same groups and the same NGOs. Is there something legally that can be done for NGOs that fund and encourage this kind of disaster?
Absolutely. And in fact, you read my mind, Julie. I give you an A+, because they get the Garcia. These organizations get the Garcia treatment. I am absolutely certain that at Main Justice in the Criminal Division, under the direction of the Deputy Attorney General, they are having a federal grand jury, maybe in Los Angeles, maybe elsewhere, issuing subpoenas for the bank records of various NGOs, phone records, emails, electronic communications right now. And I can assure you that within a relatively reasonable period of time, there's going to be some indictments of funding for a fundamental conspiracy to engage in violent conduct in Los Angeles and elsewhere. This has been long in the making. There's plenty of evidence that NGOs have been knowingly funding, I wouldn't call it insurrectionists, because those terms are useless, subversive behavior, violent behavior, actions which are not in the interest of public order, which justify the deployment of National Guard troops. So it's going to be very interesting to see what type of theory they use. But yes, this can be done. These organizations can be investigated, and if the evidence exists, they can be indicted.
All right. Stay with us, Joe, because we also had several court decisions come down with regard to DOGE and the executive branches.
I didn't hear anything about it.
Well, we're about to discuss it. Quick, study up. Also, a victory for the president's decision about the Associated Press's access to the press pool, all in favor of the Trump administration. Maybe that's why you didn't hear anything about it, but our listeners will, and you'll hear it straight from the one and only Joe diGenova, just in 60 seconds. First, though, 7:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives, Steve Hirshorn in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
I-95 southbound in Virginia, the long-standing accident investigation that was south of Dumfries before Triangle cleared up. Everything is now open. Still very slow southbound on 95 from Dale Boulevard, but everything is now open between Dumfries and Triangle. And now a report of an accident on 95 south near the exit for Dumfries, exit 152. Northbound 95 is still very heavy from Dale Boulevard up to the Prince William Parkway, and from Route 1 in Woodbridge up to the Franconia Springfield Parkway. 395 in delays now from the Beltway up to Seminary Road, and then from Boundary Channel Drive up to and across the 14th Street Bridge into town. Now from GarageDoorRepair.com, the WMAL Stormwatch 7 forecast.
We've got patchy morning fog and mist, and then partly sunny today. Maybe a stray evening storm with a high hitting 83 degrees. Tonight, a chance of thunder showers, and it's going to be muggy overnight with lows hitting around 65. Tomorrow, a few morning showers, then partly sunny. Chance of afternoon thunderstorms, high of 84. Wednesday, sunny with a high in the mid-80s. Right now, it's 69 degrees, 7:16.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
We continue with Joe diGenova. Joe, let's begin with the appeals court decision in favor of the Trump administration's ban on the Associated Press's access to the White House. This has specifically with regard to the pool. This has to do with their ability to be in the Oval Office with a small a hand-selected number of journalists, or on Air Force One. The Associated Press has every right to practice their business and exercise their First Amendment freedom of the press, but they don't have access to wherever they want to go in the White House. The Trump administration's determined that they're not going to get that access, and this appeals court now has decided, yes, that's correct. That's not a violation of the First Amendment. Is this going to go all the way to the Supreme Court, do you think, Joe?
Oh, sure. I'm sure the Associated Press is going to make the mistake of appealing to the Supreme Court because they believe very much so in their special status. You know, the AP used to be the gold standard. Their style book was used to teach people how to use proper English, how you reported on things, how you pronounce people's names, how you named the Gulf of America, whatever it was, even though the AP didn't want to call it the Gulf of America, even though official U.S. government documents call it the Gulf of America. The AP is no longer the gold standard. They are, in fact, the lead standard. They are lead in your water. They are the lead in the water of American news. They have become so woke, so corrupt, so incompetent. I remember dealing with the AP reporters at the courthouse back in the 1980s. They were good, hardworking reporters. Just give me the facts. Give me a copy of the indictment. Let me report what you've done. Now, everything has an edge. Everything is about the downtrodden, the victim. And America is bad. Trump, of course, they have Trump derangement syndrome to a fare thee well. So the court, by a vote of 2-1, said they're not entitled to special access, that there are certain areas and things that the president does that are close to him that they do not have a right to be. That includes Air Force One, the Oval Office, most of the private rooms in the White House, and that's it. They're going to be included in certain groups of reporters that are brought in occasionally, but they're not getting special access anymore. They have earned this crown of thorns.
Yes.
In fact, I'm looking at Thursday's press pool was the out-of-town travel pool was ABC. Politico was the print pool. BBC was the radio pool. Yeah, I know ABC is. What do you think of Terry Moran being part of that?
Mm-hmm.
And then the in-town pool was the second.
Terry is a very sick puppy, and there is no way that after the George Stephanopoulos settlement they can keep Terry Moran on board. He has to be fired. He has to be fired. Now, if he isn't fired, just remember that newsroom will remain infected with this type of political bias. I've known Terry Moran since the 1970s. He is a sick little pup. He's a pompous little putz.
But ABC News has known that about him and all that. I mean, I gave the list here: David Muir, George Stephanopoulos, Martha Raddatz, Jonathan Karl, the cast of The View. I mean, this is who ABC News hires as these gatekeepers for the news and the analysis of the news.
I wouldn't. You know what? If I were Trump, I'd just issue an order. Nobody goes on ABC News. No platform for ABC News. Nobody in the administration is allowed to go on ABC News. Yeah. Make them suffer. Believe me, the oxygen that Trump and his people provide for these news broadcasts is life to them. It's life. If you deny them people on the set, they go crazy.
All right, two other quick decisions here having to do with Doge. This is, of course, Doge. Everyone's like, oh, Doge, it's Elon Musk. No, it's the Office of Management Budget. But this is Russ Vought and the director of OMB, who utilizes this task force to come up with efficiency and find fraud and waste. There had been a order preventing Doge from accessing Social Security records, and a court granted a stay on that order. And then there was also an order requiring Doge to hand over information about work and personnel, and a court blocked that order. These all seem to be the correct positions for the court to take in terms of them. You know, the administration and the executive branch is allowed to conduct business the way it sees fit.
Well, one would think that. But as long as you have, 637 federal judges around the country, with a huge number of Obama judges being selected by NGOs and liberal and ultra-leftist plaintiffs, they're going to get some early action and early success. Ultimately, the president is going to win almost every one of these battles. The problem for him is he's trying to get things done. They are trying to stop him from doing them. They don't care if they win or lose. They just want to prevent him from doing things quickly. I think to me, what this shows is the president is right. He has good numbers with support from the American people. Watching what's happening in Los Angeles is 2020 redux. It's Minnesota all over again. You either stop this now or you have chaos. And I want to see who the federal judge is who tries to stop the president from deploying federal troops to protect federal buildings, federal personnel, and federal law enforcement. This is going to be the great showdown, and Gavin Newsom is going to lose.
Joe diGenova, always good to have our Mondays with you at 7 p.m. Thanks for joining us today, sir.
Thanks, Joe.
My pleasure.
It's 7:22. And now it's time for another chapter of WMAL's Military Medicine Minute, powered by Humana Military and the Friends of Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. So it's the thick of World War II. Pilots flying high altitudes, never before done in wartime, and suddenly they're blacking out because of a lack of oxygen. What are you going to do? Well, to save them, military doctors and engineers developed the first practical oxygen mask, a snug, rubberized device that delivered pressurized air directly to the lungs. And it worked. Pilots stayed conscious, alert, and alive. The invention didn't just win battles, it changed medicine. After the war, doctors saw its potential beyond the cockpit. Hospitals began adapting the technology to help patients with respiratory failure, but its most profound impact came in neonatal care. The oxygen mask principles were miniaturized and refined, giving fragile newborns a fighting chance. Today, the legacy of that wartime invention lives on in every NICU, ambulance, and emergency room. And that's it for another Military Medicine Minute. Coming up, the speaker, Newt Gingrich. What does he think about the Elon Musk, Donald Trump dust-up and the prospects of the big, beautiful bill? Keep it here.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37 on O'Connor and Company. It's still about 2 hours until sunrise in Los Angeles. We'll get a look at how things are faring in that town as the National Guard has been deployed. Governor Newsom trying to sue the Trump administration over deploying the National Guard. Coming up at 8:05, Cully Stimson Heritage Foundation talk about the illegality of these sanctuary cities and elected officials trying to get in the way of federal officials enforcing the law. And then at 8:35, Kurt Schlichter, who of course you know as an author and columnist. He was also a colonel in the Army, deployed with the National Guard in California for many years, including the Rodney King riots of '92. That's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
It's a busy Monday, but we're never too busy to have a conversation with one of the smartest political and governmental minds. Is that a word, governmental? Legislative minds. The former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, he has a new book out, Trump's Triumph, America's Greatest Comeback. Speaker Gingrich, thanks for joining us, sir. Always good to talk with you.
Well, I'm always delighted to be on WMAL, and it's always fun.
I got to ask, you figure Tom Brady watches a football game, and when the commentators and the people talking about the game have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, that's got to be what it's like for you when you see a CNN panel talk about the spending bill. Oh, this spending bill. It's a reconciliation package. This is not a spending bill. It's not a budget bill. It's not an appropriations bill. It's reconciliation. Does that drive you nuts when you hear stuff like that? And can you sort of give us a brief description as to what we're really dealing with?
Oh, look, since I've been dealing with this my whole career, it doesn't drive me nuts, but they just don't know anything. This is, I think Trump is right that this big, beautiful bill is central to what he's trying to accomplish. It has very important tax cuts, which will help the economy boom. It has significant deregulation. It strengthens the border, which you can tell in Los Angeles we really need to be doing. And it has very significant spending cuts. And many of them are pretty smart. All these lies about Medicaid, for example, no children are going to be kicked off Medicaid.
Right.
The reforms say don't pay for illegal immigrants, don't pay for crooks, and don't pay for adults who refuse to work. Now, all three of those positions are held by well over 70% of the American people. So,
Speaker Gingrich, what did I miss? I thought you already accomplished that in the 90s. You even had Bill Clinton, cynically running for re-election in 96, on board with the idea that you have to work if you're going to get benefits like this, if you're able to work. So what did I miss? When did that get overturned?
The Democrats hate the idea of a work requirement. For some reason, their party, which is, by the way, resurrected the concept of gang lives matter as part of their new mantra.
Nice.
The Democrats are committed to almost anything which undermines America. It's amazing to watch. And overwhelmingly, the American people, by the way, even people on Medicaid, believe you should work. So you had big majorities for work. When we did it in the 90s, we had about 91% support. We had half the Democrats. They split 98 to 98 in the House because you'd go back home and people would say, what do you mean you're not for work?
Right.
But again, it's a little bit like watching the idiocy in California where you have a governor and the mayor of Los Angeles who are in favor of the rioters. No, that's a 15% position. Most Americans don't like riots. They particularly are insulted that somebody who's here illegally has decided they should attack federal law enforcement. So this again and again, you see the Democrats take positions that are bizarrely minority, and that's what's making it hard to get this bill through. The problem we have is a handful of Republicans actually listen to some of this, and as you pointed out, I'm the only speaker who helped balance the federal budget for 4 straight years in the last century. And I can tell you, we could get to a balanced budget within a decade if we did it seriously and correctly.
Well, the Senate Democrats really should look at the polling, or I'm sorry, the Senate in general, Senate Republicans especially, should look at the polling on this. Vast majority of Americans support this bill. And among those who support Trump-like policies, the support is standing at 78%. So, I think general support is 47%. General disapproval is something like 34%. There is a sizable undecided, but again, the Senate Republicans seem to, they're worried about, that there isn't enough cuts, and they're worried about the debt. But Americans want this to get going. They want to see action on that.
That's right.
What are the Republicans? Are they just afraid? Are they ignoring this polling?
No. I think what happens is you have 2 different groups. You have a handful of moderates who start to quiver if you say Medicaid reform, and they think that they're basically arguing that we should pay for illegal immigrants, crooks, and people who refuse to work. But there are a handful of those. Then there are a handful of very hardcore fiscal conservatives who correctly understand that the deficit will go up, or the debt will go up rather. But the point I would make to them is, when we got to a balanced budget, it took us 4 years, the first year we didn't balance the budget. The question is this a big first step in the right direction? And my answer, having both lived it in office and having studied it since, this is absolutely a very big first step. President Trump is exactly right, and they ought to get into the business of taking the right first step, not quibbling and finding an excuse to vote no.
Newt Gingrich's book, Understanding Trump, in my opinion, was the most important book about the first Trump presidency, his victory in 2016. It truly delivers exactly what the title suggests. You will understand Trump if you don't as of now. His latest book is Trump's Triumph, America's Greatest Comeback. And quickly, Mr. Speaker, if you could, this book is going to resonate, I think, with a lot of people, not just because of the victory in last year's election, but also as we see this Trump administration play out here. What's different this time around from your perspective?
Well, a number of things. First of all, the 4 years in the wilderness gave him time, and Calista and I worked with the America First Policy Institute to develop a huge range of policy options that simply did not exist in 2020. He became, I think, more determined to change the establishment. And then I think having had 2 assassination attempts, one of which he survived providentially because if he had not moved at exactly the right second, he'd have been dead. I think that actually got to him. It made him feel much like Reagan and Pope John Paul II, who both had been shot and who both thought God had spared them for a reason. I think Trump concluded and Speaker Mike Johnson helped me understand this because he was there in Mar-a-Lago for the second assassination attempt and said that he and Trump went to a private room and prayed for about 2 hours. I think Trump feels much more responsibility for doing the right thing this time than he did in the first term, and I think as a result, he is a man on a mission, and that mission, it literally is to make America great again.
Give our best to Ambassador Gingrich, by the way. Always good that she allows you to have a spare time here on WMAL. I don't know what it takes to get the ambassador on the air, but we'll settle for the speaker if that's all we can get.
Yeah, I think she's actually nodding at me right now. She's glad that you like her, and she's glad that I'm on the air.
Honestly, we're just hoping to hear her in the background telling you to take out the garbage or something. Thank you.
We'll try to set that up sometime. Let's be part of our morning kitchen talk.
Yes.
It is 7:45.
Making sense of your world.
I can't believe this.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
And I am so with you.
Making sense of the news. WMAL's Vince Colonnese. Weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL. Making sense of the news.
There's no reason to believe this story because the source is the Washington Post and the Daily Beast. That said, we're going to talk about it because it sounds awesome. Actually, I shouldn't say that. The other source is Steve Bannon, which he is believable at times, but he also, he has a political agenda. He hates Elon Musk. So this story doesn't make Musk look very good. Remember last week, Julie, when as he was leaving the White House, Musk was sporting a black eye. Remember that? This is before the big dust-up with Donald Trump, and I think they said his son had done a little X, and which I totally believe. By the way,
we've all yes.
You got a 3-year-old boy doesn't know his own strength. He starts, absolutely. Now there's this story. And again, the source is Bannon and other White House insiders talking to the Daily Beast. Again, Washington. I don't trust those people. That said, apparently Elon Musk got into a shoving match with Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent.
I prefer this version.
I want this to be true. I really do.
And I want a video.
Apparently, they started exchanging insults. Again, I just want to point out, Steve Bannon has always hated Elon Musk. Steve Bannon wants SpaceX to be seized by the federal government, and Elon Musk support it. Okay,
stop ruining it. Stop. I just want read the story. It's so great, and just imagine it's true. Let's just pretend.
Apparently, they got into a shouting match when they exited the Oval Office and started walking down the hallway. They started insulting each other. Bessent brought up Musk's claims that he would uncover more than $1 trillion in wasteful spending. Musk hadn't succeeded in doing it, and then Musk said, Scott said, "You're a fraud. You're a fraud. You're a total fraud." And then Musk rammed his shoulder into Bessent's rib cage like a rugby player. Steve Bannon said. Then Bessent just hauled off and punched him in the eye.
As the mother of 3 children, and one of whom is a rugby player, I can totally see this happening.
Well, take it for what it is. It could have happened. It might not have happened. All we know is that Musk left. He starts lashing out at Trump, saying that Trump's in the Epstein files and calling for a nuclear meltdown. And meanwhile, Trump announced over the weekend that Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent would be joining Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and our trade representative to meet with China in London. So, I mean...
Well,
I don't know if Daddy Trump is taking sides, but it sure seems like he is.
I shouldn't laugh. The sort of Trump Musk dust up makes me very sad. Frankly, I don't like. Me too. I really bums me out. But I do find some of these rumors to be a little amusing.
I don't know if any blood was drawn or anybody got a black eye, but I can tell you, I know people who worked in the first administration. So much ugly junk took place behind the scenes. And a lot of times it made its way out into the media. There were so many warring factions. You had your Bannon people, you had your Pence people, you had your Reince Priebus people, you had your John Kelly people, you had your
Alyssa Farrar
Kushner
people. Yes.
You had all these different warring factions. It got the fact that this second time around it has been relatively mild. I mean, and run beautifully, and then something like this happens. It's like, Okay.
Again,
when it
questionable-
explodes, it's
yes.
going to be ugly. That's
But
all.
again, questionable sources.
Yes.
And you're right.
I don't trust
that
the Washington
some
Post.
some people want these folks to fight, and
Yeah.
so we'll see.
It is 7:53.